Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss chapter 5, the food chain. And in this chapter, we will learn what are consumers and what are producers and how energy flows between animals. So let's have some warm-up before we begin the lesson. Maya is on a safari in the jungle to see a tiger. She sees birds, insects, deers and other animals. But she did not see a tiger. Do you know why? All living things, be it plants or animals, need energy to live. Where do they get this energy from? Plants depend on the sunlight, water, and minerals from the soil to make their food and get energy. Plants are producers of food. They use the sun's energy through the process of photosynthesis to make their food. Humans and animals get their energy when they consume the food prepared by plants or other animals. A food chain shows the transfer of food energy from one plant to an animal and then to another animal. By knowing how energy moves from one animal to another, we also came to know how plants and animals are dependent on each other. The feeding pattern shows the connection between these animals. The food chain starts with green plants making food using the energy of the sun. Animals get this energy when they eat the plants. So let us look at a food chain. The arrow mark shows is eaten by. It begins with the plants which produce food. The worm eats the plant. The sparrow eats the worm. And the sparrow is then eaten by the cat. The food chain shows us who eats who. The food chain also tells us how the energy traveled from the plant to the cat who does not eat plants. Prey is the animal that is eaten. Predator is the animal that eats the prey. For example, when the sparrow eats the worm is the prey and the sparrow is the predator. And when the cat eats the sparrow becomes the prey of the cat and the cat is the predator. The apex predator is the top predator on the top of the food chain in the ecosystem. This animal eats other animals and is not eaten by any other animal. For example, the apex predator of India is the tiger and Africa's apex predator is the lion. So here is a tidbit for you. Ecosystem is a community of living organisms along with the physical environment. It shows the interrelation between the living things and also the relationship between the living and non-living things in their surroundings. So let's think. A predator is the most dangerous animal in an area. Then why do we try to protect them? Let us imagine a world with no predators. What will happen? There will only be herbivores. These animals will keep on increasing and keep grazing the plants. This would not give the plants enough time to regrow and continue to live. The predators keep the number of animals at a sustainable rate. The lion hunts the antelope and keeps the number of antelopes from becoming too big. Also, when the lion hunts, it catches the weakest antelope. This only makes the antelope strong, as only the strongest or the fittest survives. Predators check the growth of the herbivores. Predators also check the growth of smaller predators. For example, if there are very few cats, this will lead to the increase in the rat population. Links in the food chain. Each link or level in the food chain has a name. This helps us to know what each organism eats and what is its energy contribution in the food chain. Producers. The organisms that can produce their own food or energy are called the producers. They are not dependent on any other organism for food. All plants are producers. Consumers. The organisms that depend on other plants and animals for food or energy are consumers. They cannot make their own food. All animals, including humans, are the consumers. Decomposers. The organisms that depend on the decaying plants and dead animals are called decomposers. Green plants are producers in a food chain. They can transfer the energy of the sun into food through photosynthesis. Now, did you know there are more than 100,000 decomposers in our world? Producers are usually the first part of a food chain. The consumers come next. The consumers are divided into two groups. First are the animals that consume only plants and are called herbivores. Herbivores are usually the second part of the food chain and are called first level consumers. After herbivores, animals that eat other animals come next. These are either carnivores or omnivores. Omnivores are animals that eat both plants and animals. Carnivores are animals that eat only other animals. Both of these animals are either called second level consumers and then third level consumers and then so on. The last member of the food chain are plants and animals that feed on dead animals and plants. They are called decomposers. Decomposers help return nutrients to the soil. These nutrients are then used by plants to make food. Insects, snails, mushrooms, bacteria, etc. are decomposers. Energy is lost at each level. As the food chain increases, there is a decrease in the amount of energy that passes from one animal to another. Plants are the only organisms that produce their own food. Plants introduce the energy into the food chain. Others are only consumers of that energy. More organisms are required at the lower level of the food chain to produce energy, because more of them should supply the energy required to animals on the higher levels of the food chain. That means the energy available decreases as we move up the food chain. The number of animals also decrease as we move up the food chain. So here is an example. There is more energy in the grass than the deer, and more energy in the deer than the lions. The deer and the lion use up energy by running, hunting, and breathing. Energy pyramid is a graphical representation of the energy used up in each level in the ecosystem. Each link of the food chain is important. All links are interdependent. A lion does not eat the grass, but if there is no grass, what will the deer eat? Hence, if there is no grass, there will be no deer and no food for the lion. Similarly, the lion is also important for the grass. If there is no lion, the population of the deer will go on increasing. This ever-increasing population of the deer will eat up all the grass. This will lead to a decrease or complete loss of grass. So, by consuming the deer, the lion keeps the number of deers below a certain level. This prevents the overgrazing of grass. Food webs. In an area, there are many food chains. Most plants and animals are a part of several chains. When we draw these chains together, we get a food web. A food web is more informative than a food chain, as it shows how consumers and producers are interconnected in nature. So let's explore. Find out what are the animals living in a forest near you. Discuss in your class how are these animals connected in a food web. So here is a science top-up for you. Al-Jahiz was a 9th century scientist who introduced the concept of food chains. The food web was introduced by Charles Elton in 1927. So here are some word meanings from the lesson for you. Harness, to control or make use of something. Ecosystem, all the plants and animals that live in a particular area together. So here is a mind map of the lesson for you. The food chain shows the flow of energy between producers and consumers. Plants are the producers in a food chain. Animals are the consumers. Animals are divided into herbivores, omnivores, carnivores, and decomposers. The energy decreases at each level. The energy flows from producers to the prey to the predator, and from the predator to the apex predator.